we were the tip of the spear coming out of COVID. Peloton was one of the fastest going up, and we came slamming down. Within the next 6 months, every growth company on the planet came down to the tune of 50 to 90% collapse.
Yeah, that's right.
We were just the first one. Peloton was an incredible company, incredible brand, fun, thing to build with great founders and great team. And now I'm selling rugs, and a diverse career can keep you engaged and excited and learning and having fun. So I think business is a great way to do it.
All right, guys, we are back with Business Untitled. Subscribe, like, comment, add us on Instagram, TikTok. I love TikTok too. I'm here with
YouTube.
I'm here with the world famous Dave Barry. Mike thought I was going to say the world famous Mike Novogratz. But here with the world famous Dave Barry and Mike Novogratz. And I'm going to pass it to Dave.
Well, I want to introduce our next guest. He's been a friend of mine for a long time and business partners as well, John Foley. John, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
John,
fun to be here.
Yeah, John, for reference, I guess I got introduced to you by either Amar Lavani or Dave Heller back in the day, and that was when you had left. John was CEO of Barnes & Noble Interactive, right, or online, something like that?
Online.com, yeah.
Online.com. And then went, and we're going to talk about this, went on to found Peloton, which was amazing, and I was lucky enough, as was Mike, to be in that from the beginning, and so we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, I met these guys.
A little bit. It was an incredible vision and company. He has a new venture now called Ernesta, which is direct-to-market, direct-to-consumer carpets, and he's going to tell us about that. Went to Georgia Tech, Harvard Business School, a total business stud, and we're happy to hear.
And maybe more importantly, because he was kind of a CEO of the moment, he's now going to be our talent scout for all these other entrepreneurs because he seems to know all of them.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome. We just hired a guy.
Welcome, New York.
Welcome, John. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to the podcast.
It's a small tech community here in New York City of especially direct-to-consumer founders, but in general, I've put my arms around other tech entrepreneurs in New York because I'm proud of what's happening here in New York. I love New York, and it's a little bit of a competitive thing to the Valley where I think what we're doing is super cool, and I think the people doing it are cool, so it's been fun to connect with all these people.
With saying that about New York, I saw this post that went pretty viral with Ken Griffin and Jeff Bezos. And it was saying one guy makes $38 million a day, the other guy makes $3 million a day, and these two guys are advocating for tech and finance to be run from Miami.
Wow.
Do you think that's possible?
Sounds like Republicans.
I don't think it's not even close to being responsible. Those guys are there to pay less tax. Let's be really clear about it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Would everybody move there to pay less tax?
Let me tell you, the total office space being built in Miami, total right now being built in Miami is less than one building in Hudson Yards. Miami is a tiny little place relative to New York City. And so there's not a place for the talent to even be stored. Those guys are putting companies there, but their talent's all in New York.
But
kids want to come here.
Stayed 20 minutes away from Miami.
What? They don't have the infrastructure of human capital to build the world-class businesses. They can bring people down there because, you're right, there's cheaper taxes. And I like going to Miami for the weekend, but it can't be into the same breath as New York City.
Yeah. John Foley's from Florida. He could give you some
part of
perspective on
Florida?
that.
I grew up, I went to high school down in Isla Mirada, Tavernier in the Florida Keys.
Wow, that's the middle of nowhere.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Do they have black people there?
Yeah, lots. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it was good. It was a diverse community, fun. Graduated with 100 kids. 4 of us went to college.
Wait,
no way.
Yeah. It was
crazy.
It's just kind of, there's
So
not a lot
Were you one of the rich kids?
we had a house. Most kids grew up in trailers. So I was, my dad was an airline pilot. I was probably top 10% wealthy down there, yeah.
Wow.
Isn't it funny when you're like when I grew up, the guy whose dad was the orthodontist was the rich guy.
Yeah.
We're like, dude, they're so rich because his dad was an orthodontist,
Yeah.
and the rest of our parents were military government workers. It's just that snow globe you grow up in. There's a pecking order.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah.
Why don't we start out with just talking about
Growing up.
Huh?
Growing up.
Yeah, growing up and how you got into business.
I got into business because there's, it's the Willie Sutton rule: go where the money is. I needed to make money, and interestingly, my son is now 15. He's taking the SAT, and going to this public high school down in the Keys. It wasn't like college prep environment. So I remember taking the SAT, and I got 750 on math, and I got 530 on verbal, which is 1280, and not. I say it in a.
I got the exact same thing.
Oh, that's so funny. It's not something you should be
Is
proud
that
of.
good or bad?
No, it's not good.
It's
By today's
I dropped out of high
by
school.
today's standard,
Shit.
that's the hunger. We like that.
Today's standards.
school, kids.
Today's standards, you're not getting in a good school. With
That's
those.
right. Yeah, 1280 is not good. But to answer your question, Dave, with such a 220 points difference between math and science, it kind of said I needed to go into engineering or something where math and science was going to be more better. So I went to Georgia Tech. I paid my way through Georgia Tech, working in Waco, Texas, making candy, wearing a hairnet, steel-toe shoes, and a uniform.
How old were you?
I was 19 when I got into this co-op program, and I started working 6 months a year for 5 years to pay. So
What kind of candy?
So
Yeah, I'm just trying to get that visual.
Oh yeah, so it's proper candy, billions of dollars worth of candy made out of this plant. But I was responsible at one point for all of the Skittles and Starburst production for North America as a shift manager. I managed a midnight shift.
Oh wow.
But this plant, guys, also made Snickers and Twix, and we made 6 million Snicker bars a day.
Wait, what?
Just for the North American market.
6 million. That's why we all fat.
That's why we're fat. We're going to talk about obesity in another episode.
So on one end of the spectrum, you were partially responsible for getting America fat.
Full circle.
And
Full
on the
circle.
other spectrum, you felt so bad you got them healthy.
It's true. That's true.
See that?
Keeping track.
Like that.
So you did the candy for how many years?
Effectively through college, and then for a
awesome.
couple years afterwards. It was probably 6 or 7 years working in Waco. Back
Who's
to
eating
country
6
music and
million Snicker bars a day.
it's tons. Yeah, it's crazy.
So
By the way-
Waco, Texas, that was post the Waco tragedy?
During.
During.
I
So you were
saw,
there.
I saw the fire.
Branch
from-
Davidians.
Yeah.
You're too young for Branch Davidians.
I was there.
That's crazy.
They made a
Yeah,
Netflix
yeah.
on it.
I'll check it out.
They were there that long. The FBI and the CIA and the ATF, I think it was.
Yeah, it was ATF that
Yeah,
blew 'em up.
ATF would be working out in our gym, and they'd show up in the morning because they had to get their workout. It was like a couple months standoff, I believe.
Crazy.
Yeah. But to answer your question, Dave, I got into business because it's one, as I've gotten older, I'm trying to push my kids into business. I think it's fun. Business, I guess we're going to talk about Peloton at some point. Peloton was a incredible company, incredible brand, fun, thing to build with great founders and great team. And now I'm selling rugs. And it's, I think, don't need to tell Mike Novogratz or either of you that a diverse career can keep you engaged and excited and learning and having fun. So I think business is a great way to do it. And obviously, if you're good at it, you can make some scratch on the side.
What was your first business, whether it was like official, you went and filed a LLC, or the moment, like I always tell this Nintendo story, like my first business looking back was me hooking up my Super Nintendo outside my house and charging kids, right? And I look back and I was like, oh shit, that was a business. So
We have to edit this story out of each podcast because it's in each one.
who's in one podcast? What was your first business? Like unofficial or official?
Yeah, so I was working at McDonald's for most of high school, and on the side, back to my dad being more affluent, we had a 19-foot center console boat that I could run around in. And it's Florida Keys, and you're
Rich.
Yeah. I mean, I felt rich. It was good living, especially when you have a couple of pops and you have girls on the boat. It's kind of But again, you're not getting into college, spending your weekends and afternoons doing that too much, right? But to answer your question, Mel, there was some side hustles you can do on a boat, including running crab traps and lobster traps, and trying to put together a small business selling crab or lobster in the marketplace. It never became much, but every morning you wake up thinking you're going to make some money, or you're going to pull up the mother load of crabs or lobsters. That's or whatever.
awesome.
Yeah.
So that had to be like kind of from whatever money you made from that had to be like one of the moments you fell in love with the idea of business.
Yeah,
and
sure.
earning.
Yeah, exactly. I also saw, Mike, you brought up orthodontists. My dad was an airline pilot, and his job was always the same. And he flew planes for 35 years for Delta. And then Delta went bankrupt, and he lost his pension, and he lost his big tragic story from my father. But as a lawyer largely, or a doctor or a dentist or an orthodontist, those jobs, you can make good money, but it's obviously capped. It's, a couple $100,000, which for most Americans, you're super excited about that. Most immigrants, that's kind of the golden ticket, is to get one of those jobs. But I saw very quickly that if you're super dynamic and you want to, run up the hill and try to share in the upside of your hard work, you got to take a little bit different angle. And obviously business is one of those ways. Same thing with you, Mel. I know you've kind of, the business of music is similarly exciting.
Yeah, it is. I think at this point, just all business is exciting to me, honestly. So the Nintendo story. That's where I fell in love. And then the music
Cigarettes.
is kind of music is what pushed me over the top. But then I just fell in love with just business. Like you said, just earning and not having a limit to it, and dreaming more than anything. I fell in love with the dream of one day possibly being a billionaire, like Mike Novogratz mentions every single podcast that he is a billionaire.
I've never said that. I'd like that on the record.
Yeah, that same thing.
Well, it's also what I like, and I think we all probably played some sports. I know you're hardcore. Both of you are
Not
hardcore.
me at all.
I don't know your background, but but I like sports and I like team stuff. And to your point, Mel, with business, you can get with some other friends and some other business people who inspire you. You can define a challenge, you can raise some money, and you can attack that challenge. And hopefully we'll talk about Ernesta.
Yep.
And I'm having more fun than I've ever had in my life. I've had a rough couple of years, but I'm back at it and defined a new challenge, and a little bit probably like you, Mel, where you find a new artist or a new genre or something that just is a whole new vector of learning for you.
It's interesting. I'm just thinking of we're on 7th or 8th podcast, and if there was a theme song, it could be Chumbawamba. I get knocked down, but I get up again. That literally, I'm just thinking of almost every guy who sat in that seat.
Yeah.
Everyone's, falling on their ass once or
My
twice.
greatest success with music is City Morgue. And when I first heard the music, I didn't even fucking understand what they were saying. And it wasn't something that I listened to at the time. Now I fell in love with the music because I came to understand what they were talking about. But at the time, it was just like rock and roll mixed with hip hop, these two kids just screaming. And I just saw something so different that I was like, it's attracting me to it, and I feel like the rest of the world is gonna get this.
Yeah, sure.
But it wasn't like music I loved. It wasn't like music I even understood. It was just the emotion in it. I just knew if I feel like this, other people are gonna feel like this. And that group blew up. They just did Madison Square Garden. They do arenas now. They sell millions of dollars of merch every year.
I'm a fan.
He's a fan. Wow. He did the mosh pit with them. So it was just like, and now I love the music after I understood it. But in the moment when they were in front of me, it's kind of like, what the fuck is this? But I don't know. I feel something.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was that initial inspiration, that aha moment?
For Peloton.
Yeah.
Well, how did you, before that, real quick?
Transition from candy to what?
How did you,
So, my
How
brother-in-law,
did you even come up with this?
John Pleasance, who I think you guys know, really neat guy. I just spent Thanksgiving with him. He's still my best friend and married my sister. And, but he was he's 6 years older, and I used to work for him. He was a big mentor to me. I went to this, very, I'll say rough, because it wasn't rough, but it was very poor public high school in the Florida Keys. My brother-in-law went to St. Paul's, Yale, Harvard Business School. He was on this gorgeous pedigree track, and so when he came into my life,
those guys.
But when he came into my life, it kind of changed my life, because he was similar to me, and he was dynamic and excited, and we shared so much in common. And I saw I could potentially be like him, and so I applied to, well, first of all, he got me over to the early days of the internet, a company called citysearch.com, which was a local city guide in 1996.
Wow.
Which was the early days of the
That
internet.
is early.
Yeah, and it was super fun. So I left manufacturing, Mars Incorporated, which is a great family-held company, which most people stay there in their entire career. So it was very odd that I was leaving, but I was like, I think the dynamicism of the people in the internet space was something intoxicating and very, you guys have seen it. I'm sure it's similar to the last 5 or 10 years of crypto. I would guess it's just really dynamic people who are, want to take the hill and want to work hard and are dynamic and smart and generally well educated. But anyway, so I went to City Search, and then he encouraged me to apply to Harvard Business School. I applied to Harvard Business School. I had this kind of the sun shines on a dog's ass every now and then moment where I think they were interested in my manufacturing background and my .com background, both of which were pretty rich for as young as I was, having started when I was 19 working in the manufacturing. So anyway, I got into Harvard Business School, not because I did that well at Georgia Tech, not because I tested that well, just because there was something in it. I was different than the McKinsey guy or the Goldman guy or the. So and that kind of changed my life. All of a sudden, I showed up really nervous and insecure, and 2 years later, I had the confidence to be able to sit with guys like you and know that I could, I could not say I could hang, because that might be a little bit too self-aggrandizing, because I'm still insecure in being able to hang with you guys. But it did change my life. And so coming out of that, I went back and worked for John Pleasance again at Ticketmaster, which was owned by Barry Diller at the time. And so something, Mel, you asked about my first real entrepreneurial thing. I really liked working at IAC. Joey Levin, who's a buddy of mine who's now the CEO, was there. All these interesting, very smart, dynamic people. And Barry did a very good job creating a culture. And so what we did, there's a guy named Dan Marriott, who was my partner, founding a company called Pronto.com. But he did something interesting. I don't know whether you've heard about it. It's a separately capitalized inside of a corporate shell, phantom equity structure with a forced put call option after 5 years, where the company had to buy out our 20%. They're the funding partner. And so we effectively started a company without venture backing. We started it with IAC backing, but it was within that parent company.
Interesting.
It was pretty cool to keep dynamic people at your company. You fund them, you agree to fund them, and it was this baseball arbitration, put call thing that they had to pay us for the value of the company we created. So even before I was on the radar of venture capitalists, we were doing entrepreneurial stuff where we would share in the upside of what we created within IAC. So that was kind of...
Whose idea was that? Was that Barry's idea? Or
it was
idea?
Dan Marriott is just very smart. He went over to Stripes Group with Ken Fox. He's a private equity guy. But he was kind of a deal genius, and he came up with this, and he saw me as a good operating partner, so we teamed up.
Did you get close to Barry at that point?
Yeah, I worked directly for him for 6 or 8 years, and I had a great relationship with him. As we might talk about, and I think you guys are very similar. I know you are, actually both of you are, you're aggressive and you want to win, and I put so much pressure on myself. By the way, Barry Diller's a multi-billionaire. I have nothing. I had nothing, and now I'm back to pretty close to nothing. But at the time, I was so hungry that he didn't have to put pressure on me. I mean, he's notorious that he's tough, but at one point he's like, John, if you don't figure this out, I'm going to fire you in 6 months. I was like, oh my God, you'd give me I'd give myself 6 weeks. I was like, you're giving me 6, and he kind of frustrated him, because he's like, God, I was trying to really lean on him, and it backfired. I was like, I got to figure this out. I need the money. You're fine. I had a fire in my belly, and so his tough nature never bothered me. I actually appreciated, that he was hungry and wanted a lot out of his team, and I like that.
Peloton.
So
I jump over to Barnes & Noble for a hot second with my partner, William Lynch, who was the CEO, and we were trying to make a last-ditch effort to go after Amazon. And looking back, it was too little, too late. We were actually going to try and take it private, but the leases were seen as debt, and so you couldn't lever it because it was effectively long-term liability or something that makes sense now in retrospect, but at the time I didn't understand that technicality. So
you guys were trying to buy Amazon?
No.
Oh.
To compete with Amazon.
Compete with Amazon.
Yeah, Barnes
okay.
and Noble, which was, Amazon's the most well-run company in the last 25 years, and they had a 15-year head start. So it was kind of a little bit arrogance or hubris to think that we had any chance, and certainly history would say that we didn't. And so we that only lasted for like 18 months. And to answer your question, Dave, I was staring at the Nook and the Kindle world, and when I was at Barnes and Noble, and I'm going to tell you what the Nook and the Kindle are. It's a hardware platform with software, custom-made software to consume content at home.
My wife still uses the Kindle.
Yeah. And so you have this hardware device in your home
There you go.
and the software, and you can have access to millions of books
Yep.
available when you want them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like a lot of people in my 30s with my wife and I did a Soul Cycle, Flywheel, Barry's Boot Camp, yoga, all these different, fancy boutique fitness stuff. You remember, I'm sure Suki was in that world, or if not yourself as well. And it was really cool. Yeah, exactly.
I gotta suck that
You to me
in.
cheeseburgers. So
We're all
anyway,
talking about fitness with guts.
but we, there's the early days of music streaming, and you're like, okay, you can stream music. YouTube's taking off. You can stream video. And I said, I think you can build a vertically integrated hardware software platform. I was probably pitching you guys right about this time, or within a year, of saying, I think if you look back, I was pitching you on pretty much what we built, almost to the interface.
Absolutely.
And it was very clear in my mind what it was supposed to be, including the Barry's Boot Camp part of it, which would be the treadmill workout, which I think treadmill is a bigger market. And by the way, to this day, I think it's a huge opportunity for Peloton. That
I have one, and I use it
yeah, the treadmill
sometimes.
with the programming with on and off and do the weights, and it's an efficient workout, right? Unlike a treadmill that is super boring, an old school treadmill is super boring.
Yep.
But when you say, okay, get on the treadmill for 5 minutes, get off, grab your 30-pound weights, do this stuff, get down on the floor, do push-ups, and do all, mountain climbers, get back on the treadmill, and assuming everyone's done a boot camp workout, it is super good for your heart and your cardio. But it's also, it shreds you in a way that a Soul Cycle workout doesn't, right? Or a biking workout doesn't.
Yeah.
So anyway, we saw the bike workout, we saw the tread workout, and so the idea was great, the team was great, our founders are great. The real challenge that you guys sat front row to, including you on the board, was the fundraising challenge. It was one of the hardest companies I could ever imagine to, I know that there are other founders that have had as hard a time or maybe harder, but I think to my knowledge, you can count them on one or two hands. I just don't know. We had to raise a lot of money and nobody was there. You remember these days.
Well, I remember I was kind of a lucky investor because I think, our kids were going to the same school, and my wife met you, and I didn't realize Dave and Heller were getting in originally, and then we all got together and said, I'm in. But I wasn't paying as much attention to these guys. And it took us, there was another round, and then another round, and I was like, how many? And I remember in my mind saying, I'm never investing in another hardware business. I mean, I didn't even know hardware software was, quite frankly. I was a macro guy, but I was just getting into venture. But that became like a truism because of how many damn rounds you had.
Yeah. Well, being on that board, to me it was amazing because the amount of capital that put it, building the bikes in Taiwan, right, in addition to building a software platform, was just daunting. And so it was reasonable that we would, or you would, kind of underestimate that. And I know you went from really, having known you at that point in time, being somebody that was like all about the inspiration, the ideas of the product, to spending, like, at that point in time, had to be 75% of your time was just courting capital, right?
At least 75%. You're right, Dave. I've said this, and this is honest truth, that I did not build Peloton. My co-founders built Peloton when I was out on the road trying to raise money. And for 2 or 3 years.
How many rounds were there before?
I think 8 rounds and billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What was the first round? How much you raised?
400,000 at a 1.6 million pre-money, so 2 million post.
And what was the last round?
Well, she just...
That was the Tiger round that I, like an idiot, sold into. Had about $1 billion.
Yeah.
That was when the stock was at 15.
And then the TCV round was, I think, the Series...
I sold into the
F.
round right before the IPO, against the advice of Dave Barry, against the advice of the CEO and against the advice of Dave Heller. I took the advice of a new guy I just hired, who was a great guy and a great investor, and he was like, "It's a bike company." And I was like, "No, I think it's a platform company." But he was so convinced. He wrote a 24-page paper. And I'm a people pleaser. And he was working in my office. And I was like, I'd made a lot of money. It was the first venture investor. I think collectively I'd put in $300,000 in, and I got like $6.5–7 million out of it. So it was like 20 times my money on a bike company. And I was like, woo-hoo! And then boom!
Well, and then boom this way. So it's I think the story's still being told, right? I mean,
I in my mind, it's the single worst trade I ever did.
Yeah, and well, you guys know the story. The rest of the story is kind of public, right? It was, we were running a fantastic company, I thought.
Yep.
Great team, great brand, great culture. We became profitable pre-COVID, and so everything was firing. And we had a business model that we were very proud of that doesn't exist anymore. And I think that's part of the reason that the market doesn't love the story like they used to, is the model was we had gross margin in the hardware.
Mm-hmm.
So call it 40% gross margin. Let's say it cost, fully all in, it cost $1,200 to get you a bike, and we sold it for $2,000. So that $800 of margin we would put into marketing and run television ads and have stores. And so on the first transaction, when you buy the bike, if we spent $800 CAC, we would be neutral. We called it net CAC zero.
CAC is customer acquisition.
Customer acquisition cost.
Yeah.
And the gross margin and the hardware paid for that cost of acquisition. So then on month one, the subscription margin would fall to the bottom line.
Right.
And so that was how we kind of ran the railroads, and it was a gorgeous business model that we were very proud of, and we were growing 100% year on year, and that's how we ran the business.
Right.
Then COVID came, and we started chasing, capacity, and 8 billion people are stuck at home. Every gym is shut down.
And my doctor once called me up. He said, "Do you think you could call your friend who started a Peloton? Because I really, really need a Peloton."
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like,
Oh man, I got so many requests for that.
Oh, really?
Well,
Yeah.
Wow.
I was talking, by the way, I went out to Poly Prep, thanks to you guys, and talked to one of the class on these high schoolers are learning personal finance. And they, I mentioned this situation right in COVID. And I said, well, what the funny thing is, guys, or team, is what would you do when the demand is through the roof and supply is limited? What does economic theory generally tell you to do?
Raises.
And even they said you could raise prices, and I was like, you could raise prices. And I said, why wouldn't we raise prices in that environment? And they couldn't answer it. And the answer is because you would be voted off the island as a jerk, trying to take advantage of this situation and only let rich people get the endorphins and the mental health benefits and the physical health benefits of having a Peloton in their home. So you're sitting there with the same prices. You could re-adjudicate that decision sitting here today.
Yeah.
And there's the wokeness dial is kind of going the other direction now. You might be able to get away with it now.
Who knows? Who knows? I'm not.
No, it's a hard call because there was a lot of talk about gouging.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I felt good.
COVID,
We didn't as a leadership team, we didn't debate that much. That felt fine. The answer was get the capacity up. So we invested in capacity, until 2 years later,
Too much capacity.
the world decided that COVID was over, and we're sitting on this capacity. So then we had what you call fixed cost delevering, because we had all these fixed costs and it delevered. And it cost me my job. We missed a quarter, missed another quarter, and all of a sudden, John Foley is persona non grata, and he's a bad business guy. And it's like, looking back, the interesting thing is
It's interesting though, you make so many good decisions in business to build this thing and struggle through it and raise the capital. And then it's what CEOs do get paid for, though. There was one call and you made the wrong call and boom. Because it really was.
And
I don't know whether we made the wrong call. I think we tried to get as many bikes to people who were stuck at home as possible. And when you think about the existential trying to help people through COVID, I feel pretty good about that.
Well, maybe you made morally the right call, but as a shareholder, spending so much on building out capacity that you're not going to then need.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
again,
That's true.
how you balance that or how you fund.
For
I'm
sure.
not judging.
For sure, with the benefit of hindsight, there are
Yes.
things I would do differently.
Yeah.
No question, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the company becomes a different company to run at, right? Like 500 million to 5 billion to 15 billion.
That's a great question. Keep going.
Yeah, no, that's where I was going to go, because I had a front row seat to John running Peloton those first bunch of years, and he did an absolutely phenomenal job of leading that company, threading needles to get it right. That is no small feat to get a company to go from scratch to being NASDAQ, right into.
And the market cap was at the peak was what?
The peak, like
North of
15 billion, wasn't it?
No, north of 40, I believe.
Oh, it was
Wow.
So, but do you think, forgetting,
Whoa.
when you both answer the question, do you think when it was a $15 billion, $20 billion company with that kind of sales, that there was a different skill set needed than you had? Or that this was just, I mean, this was a wild time.
In
with
retrospect,
COVID up
I
and
don't
down.
think that, but at the time I did. So I approached the board and said we should get a big fancy CEO who's done this before. And so for 18 months, I recruited CEOs that I thought were fantastic. We had two world-class, incredibly seasoned, killer CEOs on the 1 yard line twice. Because you're right, Mike, I'm not the founder who's thinking that this is mine, because all I cared about was shareholder value. I was a big shareholder, and I wanted to take care of other shareholders. And I said, maybe John Foley from Key Largo, this kid who went to this crappy public high school, maybe there's somebody better than. By the way, Coral Shores is a great high school. I'm just don't want to disparage.
What's your mascot? What's your mascot?
The Hurricanes. Come on, let's
Canes.
go. No, it's just they don't have the resources. It was a poor. When I say poor, there just was a undercapitalized public high school, like a lot of public high schools these days. Vis-a-vis these fancy private schools in New York City, it was a very poor school. But
The CEO thing, though, it's a crazily interesting question, because in some ways you went through a 2-year up-down that is probably a one-off in terms of most people's business life cycle, right? Where you had a global event that created a surge of demand for all kinds of things that then brought forward demand 2 to 3 years and created the downside of all that, an air pocket. That how do you manage through that?
There's some turbulence there. I agree. And I as I keep history, and I try to, through dinner parties and with my friends and my family, I try to tell the story of history that is favorable to me, and I'll tell it here, is we were the tip of the spear coming out of COVID. Peloton was one of the fastest going up, and we came slamming down in January-ish of 2022. 22. Within the next 6 months, every growth company on the planet came down to the tune of 50 to 90% collapse.
Yeah.
That's right.
We were just the first one.
Yeah.
And
So you got all the press.
We got all the press. We were the fitness company that went up, and here comes John Foley running his company into the ground. But then every other company did the same thing, and all of a sudden it was, wait, maybe it wasn't John Foley. Maybe it was a COVID reset on consumer, and growth companies were getting hit by the increased rates that everyone saw, and there was a real unwind in growth tech, and it had nothing to do with John Foley, except the air pocket of the fixed cost leverage. But by the way, before I had some tough conversations with the board, I was laying off 3,000 people. I had got the memo that that we need to reset the cost structure. That's an obvious thing. So,
well, I guess that would have been my only. If I'm on your board, my only thought would have been, can the guy who hired all the people be tough enough to fire the people? And
for
if he can,
sure, because I care so much about the company.
right. But you're right. That the theatrics around that stock price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, business is tough enough in normal circumstances, though. When you're on the leading edge of coming into COVID, supercharging, and then the rug gets pulled out underneath, it's just going to be.
So talk about the psychology of
leveraged.
$40 billion company, it crashes down.
Before you go into that, I want to ask some fun questions. Yeah. When did you make your first $1 million? And what did it feel like?
I might have been 38, and it felt great. I mean, it was I mean, I put it all into a down payment in a West Village co-op. And then all of a sudden I didn't have any money, and now I have a rent check. I don't know. So it wasn't like I was, driving a fancy car or, ringing the cash register, running around like acting a fool. But it did taste like, okay, this is when you work hard and you get equity and you figure out, business, and you start to do well in business. It felt good.
And when like our friend here, when you hit that height and you became a billionaire, what did that feel like? Don't answer, Mike. Let him
Yeah, at that stage, it becomes funny money. I don't know how you feel. You read an article and it's a little bit. You start to look at yourself from the outside in. And for me, it definitely was funny money. It was paper money, and I never realized it. I never actualized it. So it was just it was a concept and it was an article, but it didn't. I started buying things.
What was your biggest purchase?
Yeah.
And we gotta be honest.
Mel's flashing his watch around.
All the usual stuff.
No, we don't know. We don't know.
Well,
we want to know.
He's got one of the nicest townhouses.
Mike, come on, let him.
One of the great indulgences of that type of money is flying private, and we did it for a couple of years, and we don't anymore, and it's
okay to say I bought a jet.
I did. Well, you buy a share through NetJets, and it's really good living. At business school one time, Warren Buffett came to speak to us, and he said that if you make $300,000 a year or more, and I think that's moved up, inflation adjusted, for 25 years ago. So call it, if you make $750,000 a year, which is a ton of money, I get that But he said once you make that, you're living in the same neighborhood as he is, you're eating at the same restaurants, you're wearing the same clothes, there's not much different between Warren Buffett and somebody making $750, except for the flying private thing.
And what does he call it? What's his name?
His plane?
The Indefensible.
Oh.
Is that
right?
Yeah, no. For real, the name of Buffett's plane is the Indefensible.
Yeah.
Or used to be.
Well,
Yeah.
for us, I'm a pretty social guy. You guys know this. I have lots of friends, and I love family and friends. And so anytime we would fly private, I would pack the plane with. So I wasn't flying around by myself because that would be indefensible. But it's an indulgence, and it was fun. But it's also not something I miss now. Like we fly commercial, we fly back at the bus, and we're regular family. But the core stuff that matters in your life of having dinner with friends and drinks and working out and spending time and surfing or doing whatever you do, it's all very similar. So I feel like
Mike had told me to ask you about the boat.
Oh, the boat. Yeah, I also.
How do you know about a boat?
I did have a fancy boat yeah.
Oh, he must have Googled you, because I didn't even know you had a boat.
I do but again, that was kind of, in the crushing 10 years, 12 years of building Peloton, I often wasn't the father or the friend I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I was head down. I will get a cold sore when I get stressed out sometimes. Don't know why I'm sharing this, probably oversharing.
Zovirax is your cure. I'm telling you what, all wrestlers know about this.
My good friends call it the cold sore years, which was like every time they saw me, I had a cold sore. And it was because I was brutally stressed. And it was trying to, when your company's about to run out of money and it's a high profile thing, and I'm going to lose your money, you guys are going to hate me. You're not really, but I think you're going to hate me because I lost your money because I bankrupt the company. So you got to keep the money coming to pay for the bills, and it was very, very stressful. So anyway, when I bought the boat, when I had the money, now I don't have the money and don't have the boat, but I thought about it as giving back to hosting people on the boat. Was such an intimate. If you've ever spent time on a boat where you spend, you sleep there and you have meals, and it is such a fun, quality time with your loved ones that I felt like it was a gift more to them than me, where I could, and obviously I enjoyed it, but that was a kind of a celebration for everyone around me to participate in the limited success I had for the time.
I completely get that, because Mike's boat is more a gift to me.
Yeah, that's right. Mel, you just my boat more than I.
His boat more than
All right, wait. Go on. What do you say? I want to change it to Ernesta and talk about.
Well, I was going to say the transition. So, like, listen, I said we get knocked down, we're going to get up again. Yeah. When you get knocked down, it sucks. Mm-hmm. And so, how did you emotionally get through that valley? Because it's a valley, it's a shitty valley.
Yeah.
I just blew this cat. I'm not as rich as I thought I was. I'm embarrassed. I'm coming up with a narrative. How long did that take before you were back on your feet and with your mind clicking again and saying, "Hey, Ruggs, like what's that? Was it a year? Was it 18 months? Was it?"
It was. There was no time. I was ready to get back on as soon as I saw things going sideways at Peloton. I started working on the next business plan because.
Wow.
That's actually kind of badass.
Yeah,
I cried like a baby for weeks.
Well, I will tell you, I am super blessed that my family and my friends are 100% the same, and they never saw me. They never loved me for money, and they never cared about it other than we had fun when we had it. Smoke them if you got them. Mm-hmm. And now I'm back at it, and it's the same group of friends. And my wife has been super, super strong through all kinds of unwind. A lot of it was just the logistics of unwinding, of selling houses and working through just the realities of having money and going back to where you started. There's some, logistics to that are just kind of. And they're frustrating because it's like in your face that you're losing.
But you
money.
didn't go to a healing place and take time and just try to. You just healed through relationship and starting over.
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I also want the viewers to know, from everything I understand, you didn't go completely back to where you were, financially. You still did pretty well, right? In the big scale of things, you still live.
You're right.
Well.
I mean,
more than you did before.
Mel, 100%. And I always remind myself, vis-a-vis 99.9% of the world, I with my health and my family and my living in New York City and being able to pay my bills and maybe something left over, I'm not complaining about my financial situation at all. You're 100% right. That's a very important call out. To answer your question, I don't know what I have left because I'm still unwinding, and there's some illiquid things that you don't know. Like I haven't paid my tax bill for last year, so I'm still trying to get liquid to, and then I have more tax bills coming, and I have a private equity investment that you don't know whether it's a 0.5x in this environment or a 3x, and that type of swing. So, I mean, I'm going to say bankruptcy could still be upon me. I don't think that's the case, but it could happen. Yeah. Or I could have tens of millions of dollars left, and it's still a juggling act of trying. I'm looking to sell my primary residence in New York City. I'm looking to sell I had a fancy house out in East Hampton, and I moved into a much more modest place. I'm now trying to sell that much more modest place. It's a real unwind, but I'm not complaining because, one, and it might be a good transition to Ernesta. Yeah. I think I'm going to get back on top, and I'm going to,
That's what I'm saying. It's resilience. It's to even to go through that, tell the story, and that's why I think I said that, because I wanted our listeners to understand that. Even when you aim so high, right, even your failures ain't as low as somebody who isn't trying. So you still ended up, like you said, you have tens of millions of dollars or not, but you're still in that space. But you had enough resilience to go, while Peloton was going down, create a new fucking company. That in itself is just crazy. And how did that come about?
Yeah,
and a completely different company.
Space. Yeah, I've been thinking about this business for a long time. It's probably like some of the clients you work with on the music side is you're in this band and you're doing this, but it doesn't mean you don't like this genre, and you could go join some other people, and all of a sudden you're in a different band, and it's. I didn't know you like jazz. Well, yeah, I'm a drummer. Of course, it's like whatever. You could jump around, and so as a business guy. To answer your question, Mel, I like building brands. I like building great teams, which Ernesta team is 3x better than Peloton team at the same stage. I mean, it's insane. Luckily, I don't want to say I'm better at raising money. Luckily, I've earned a little bit of goodwill, and I have a great relationship with two investors in particular who got behind me this time and allowed the fundraising process to be much easier. But I think the rugs category, I don't know how deep you want to go into rugs.
Yeah, let's
but
go
We
into
want
it.
to
Let's
go
go
deep.
into it.
You raised
Yeah.
$25 million for it initially, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Last year, about this time last year. And so the rugs category, I believe, is broken. It's super, super fragmented. There's 200 places you could buy a rug today. In big box stores, home goods stores, rug specialty stores. You go to your designer. You can go to a local mom and pop carpet installer. But there's no brands. So think about Warby Parker. Warby Parker, if you want a nice pair of glasses, you go to Warby Parker because they've curated great, eyewear. Your grandfather went to Walmart to buy glasses, but you probably
Mike still buys glasses from Walmart.
These are Warby's, baby.
They are, right?
Warby Parker.
Yes,
With
we're in
the
New
last
York
3
City
is from Walmart, which we
Those are
love
good.
Walmart.
because they're not going to hurt you. They're going to elevate your style. They're going to be on trend. They're
The
going to be.
viewers laugh at his glasses all the time.
Let me tell you, the Warby guys too. I throw a lot of parties. Those guys might throw more parties than me.
Really?
They throw great parties.
Oh yeah, we went to one of their
Shout out
parties.
to
Yeah.
the
Son of
Teamwork.
a Neil, Dave. I haven't been invited to these parties, but
To be fair, I don't think we was invited either. It was in the Hamptons and we just went.
that's
All
awesome.
right, so keep going.
So,
Ignore these guys.
so we think. By the way, Warby is also a good value. They're on trend. They're great experience, great community, great brand, all that stuff. So, the difference in the Warby business and the Ernesta business is that there's better margins in rugs. So I think about it more like we call it sugar water. I went to Georgia Tech where Coca-Cola was headquarters. Sugar water business model, as you know, is the cost of the product isn't much, pennies, but the marketing is where the money goes. And the margins are such that we are going to spend more, probably 2 or 3x more on marketing than we are on the rug we're buying that we're selling you. So it's a real opportunity for people like myself and our CMO, Alan Smith, to build a brand where you think if you want a high quality custom cut rug that feels like a super fancy New York City designer, brought it to you and made it for you, and it fits your space and it's high quality and it's a good value and it's a good experience and all these things, and you just say, hey, you need rugs, go to Ernesta. And that business doesn't exist yet. And so we're really excited about one of the fun things is we talked to our Google reps right away. 70% of area rug searches on Google are unbranded.
Oh wow.
99% of custom area rug searches on Google are unbranded. So we say Ernesta is going to be the brand. We're going to do what we did with Peloton, acquire customers efficiently, have the right unit economics, build a big business. And
Talk about the name for a sec, Ernesta.
yeah, you don't know? You don't know anything about it? Okay, good. So growing up in the Florida Keys, my dad grew up in Cuba. He was in the Navy in Guantanamo Bay. So Ernest Hemingway, he and I fished a lot. Ernest Hemingway is a big, we've read all his
Keys
books.
guy, yeah.
Keys guy, right? You got to love Ernest Hemingway. And then Bob Marley, talked about the islands. Bob Marley's middle name is
Ernesta.
Nesta?
Nesta.
Nesta. No way.
Yeah. So
Wow. Ernest
Ernest.
Hemingway plus Bob Marley.
Yes. And
Did
let me
that come to you while smoking a blunt? Be honest.
I'm not a smoker. I'm an Irishman and I probably drink too much, so I got my vices, but I'm not a big smoker. But in the Keys, there's a lot of smoking.
Contact.
Exact contact, exactly. But the fun thing about the nod to Bob Marley in this business is that the bigger your rugs, by the way, look around here, guys, the bigger your rugs, the better music sounds, the better sounds are because they don't bounce off of walls. They don't bounce off your floor. So if you have a rug that is, 4 inches from the side around the whole room, you can have better conversations. You can listen to better music. Sound is better if the rug is bigger. And that's
Could be
something.
a rug revolution is starting right here, right
yes,
now on
Mike.
Business Untitled.
Talk to me.
Yeah.
Please let
And-
me put
and
some
also
money
you-
in this time.
Huh?
Mel wants to get in this time.
You're really rich.
Peloton.
This will be a bigger business than Peloton. That's another
It will
kind
be.
of.
TAM is big.
I've got TAM is huge. 100 million rugs sold in the U.S. every year.
You know TAM is
No.
total addressable market.
For rugs?
For rugs, huge.
Yeah.
Huge
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's big. It's
Yeah.
big.
Is the
realize.
rug
Oh,
business?
it's a
So
good question.
I know with furnishing and mattresses, unfortunately, because I've got a big stake in Casper mattress. They kind of suffered the Peloton thing. Everyone shopped ahead, and now that people aren't buying houses, people get new mattresses and new furniture, new bed when they flip houses, move to somewhere else, rent somewhere else. Is rugs the same cycle, and are we coming out of that cycle?
Well,
Or is rugs a little different?
no, rugs is similar. When you move to a new house, you buy 5 or 10 new rugs. So of the 100 million rugs sold in the U.S. every year, it is lumpy. But for our business, it would blend across. Yeah.
And you're just starting anyway, so you're
Yeah,
you're going
exactly.
to take market share.
Yeah, we're
So now,
And
100
I would also
million
say
rugs
that. Wait,
sold.
hold on. I want
There's-
to say one thing about the rugs. Also, mattresses are dominated by probably 5 or 6 companies that do have brands, right?
Yeah.
Serta, Purple, whatever. Rug is completely fragmented. Would you
So
say?
just taking market share.
rug is absolutely fragmented for sure.
Right.
So yeah,
But you-
that was
you
my
don't-
question.
You don't need a
Much a
bull
roll-up.
market in rugs to have a hugely successful company.
That's right. That's
Or
right.
you need a bull market in mattresses to have
Right.
success
Because
mattresses.
it's,
That's
it's
very
effectively a
rug sold.
roll-up as well
Yeah,
as.
100 million every year.
There's no one brand name that takes the larger part of that market share.
Name a rug company.
No, I don't know how.
Yeah.
Name a mattress company.
Casper.
Come on.
That's right.
How did you identify that? Like,
So I'm a weird. I like design. I think you like design and seeing your house. I care about spaces and I care about entertainment, and I like. I'm not the most fashionable guy. My buddy Marlo Vani was over last night. You know Mar. He has like this cool fashion, and I'm just kind of a meat and potatoes. Get dressed in the morning. I don't really care what I look like, but I do care. I'm house proud. When people come over, you were over. I like having good music on. I like having good lighting, color temperature, side lighting. I like the rugs, the furniture, conversation, people. I know you're. I have been going to your party, Mike. I realized that you're such a student of this stuff, like I am, and it takes one to know one. I was really appreciated all your little attention to detail. And so I've always loved rugs, and I've been on the internet since 1996, and so I've seen the evolution of. There was a company called Rugman.com I used to spend a lot of time on because it was rug shopping 1.0, where it kind of flattened the experience, where you were able to say, I want some red, I want some blue, I want it this size, and it would, 30 years ago you went to a rugs merchant, and you had some Nepalese Sherpa guy schlepping rugs and dragging them around, and you and your wife would just sit there, and you felt bad for this guy because he's sweating, and you know you're not going to be buying a rug, you're just browsing, and you feel horrible because this person's working so hard for you, right? And so the internet kind of changed the game in rug shopping. The first version of that, that was just access to images and a database-driven front end that allowed you to access inventory in a more efficient way from home. And so I bought a bunch of rugs from Rugman.com, and I've always been a student of the evolution. But I used to, when I didn't have money, you'd go to Home Depot, you'd go to Lowe's, you'd go to Pottery Barn and buy rugs, standard size rugs. And then for that hot second, when I had money, I was able to work with designers. And I'm guessing your wives have designers, and you get a fancy interior designer, and they say you don't want an 8x10 from Pottery Barn. That's kind of, offensive to them to think that would look good in your space. You want something higher quality that fits the room, that's, the right color and that's perfect for your room, that's custom. And that's what a nice designer, and by the way, we hope to sell to those designers who want a great experience and a great price. And by the way, we also solve the supply chain side, where it doesn't take 6 months to get a custom rug. It takes directionally 2 weeks to get it from Ernesta. So we are also hardcore. We talk about the consumer branding side. Our COO is also an assassin who is changing the supply chain side of custom rugs. So we're going after this at a bunch of different angles, all with the intention of. Go ahead.
To the consumer, what's the most compelling thing about Ernesta?
Curation. So we help you, like Warby Parker, we get you to something that's going to be on trend and gorgeous and high quality, the right price, the right speed, the right experience. We're bringing content and community to our commerce experience, where our video content will help you, sit with a designer on our team, who Rosa or Katie will walk you through why this rug is great and why you want it in your house. We're going to bring community in, like we did with Peloton, where you can learn from, the interior design ideas from other people who live in your area or like rugs. They're somebody who bought this rug and why did they put a brown coffee table on it versus a glass coffee table on it or whatever. But so all kinds of different vectors, but it's basically awareness of a brand that you can trust and elevating the category along the way. Rugs, like fitness equipment, I would say, fitness equipment before Peloton was a dopey category. Full stop.
Yep.
Dopey marketers, dopey brands, dopey products. You think of a spin bike that you would have bought 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Crap.
Yep.
So Peloton elevated the fitness equipment category through cool brand and innovation and everything. We hope to elevate the rug category so that I'm not laughed out of the dinner party when I tell people I'm starting a rug company. They're like, wait, everyone says, is it a connected rug? I'm like, no, it's just old school rug. It's just better. It's better than it's ever been.
Let me ask you a question.
Smart rug.
Yeah, smart rug.
I see myself more as an investor than an entrepreneur, but I've had a couple entrepreneurial moments in my life or false starts. And when I first got out of college, or first got out of the Army and I came here, it was the blockbuster roll-up era. It's like, what can I roll up? And I had this great idea that dry cleaners, the business that's created the most millionaires in the history of America is dry cleaners.
No fucking
The
way.
most millionaires in America have started dry cleaning businesses. But so I was like, okay, you're not going to compete. When you looked at rugs, was there anything that scared you? Like, wait a minute, is there any of that like, well, that's obvious why it hasn't been rolled up or why it's not. Like, I'm just trying to push, is there any reason the rugs haven't been rolled up? There's not a brand? Because it is kind of crazy. We all have rugs.
Yeah, it's a huge category. I think
Like, what's the obstacle?
I think the reason why a business like this hasn't taken off yet is ignorance on the consumer side. The consumer doesn't know why a 8x10 rug sucks.
Interesting.
Yeah. So part of when we think about marketing, I don't call it marketing, I call it education of why a custom rug, high quality from one of the reasons why we invested heavily right away into sampling operation. So if you want to check out an Ernesta rug, don't buy an Ernesta rug, go to the website and get 5 or 10 samples that come to you within 2 days of 12 inch by 12 inch in a box, and you get to feel it and put it down, and you and your spouse can have a glass of wine and put them on your floor and talk about what you want.
Question:
Sir.
If you could pick any superpower in the world to have, what would it be?
Oh gosh.
I picked Thor.
I thought hair.
Which came true.
Well, we'll see later on.
A superpower or a superhero?
Well, either.
Either. But you you can't.
The great thing is this guy has answered every question we've asked him, and he's done it with thoughtfulness and whatnot. And now he's stumped by the superhero.
Everybody is.
Who's the? I guess I'm more than most people. Growing up in the Keys, I'm a water guy. I love the boating and I love the thing. So Aquaman, being able to swim with the fish and the porpoise and the manatee
Aquaman.
I like that.
maybe help save the reef somehow as Aquaman. Maybe a marketing campaign.
There we go.
I was going to ask you, with Peloton, it was a direct to consumer. It was digital only. You ended up going also into stores, right? And I remember that discussion, the debates about should you start to put physical locations. Do you have any plans like that for Ernesta, or do you think it'll be completely online?
No, we are actively pursuing retail strategy or stores. We're in lease negotiations in 4 or 5 different locations.
All right, ounce of gold, Dave.
All right, so ounce of gold. At the end of every podcast, we ask just for your ounce of gold of wisdom. What are you going to leave the listeners with? It can be anything, basically. But we've heard a lot of amazing stories, ideas about how you started Peloton, Ernesta, all those things that happen in your life. But if you were going to leave people kind of with 1 ounce of gold,
You're given a commencement address at Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
What do you tell the kids? One tagline.
Yeah, it doesn't just have to be a sentence,
you
but
get
kind of
paid-
like
you're gonna get paid for it.
your nugget that you leave us with.
Well, this isn't pithy, so it's not going to be some magical soundbite for a headline. But I think my superpower would be finding and somehow, I don't know how, maintaining friendships with incredible people. And as it relates to business, I mean, we all know this, but I don't see it enough, is you're only as good as the people around you. Mm-hmm. And Peloton was a great company and should be, again, a great company because of the co-founders and the partners that we had. And the same thing with Ernesta. We have this incredible group of highly motivated, everyone has a ton of equity, and but we have fun and we're excited, and I think it's a cliche that you say it. You want to surround yourself with high integrity people, but it's good for your life. It's good for your soul. It's good for your reputation. If you're doing business, it's good for your balance sheet, because these people are, similarly aggressive and dynamic and hardworking. And on my tombstone, it would say, John Foley was surrounded by great people. Mm-hmm. And it feels good to go through life that way. And I think good things happen when you're able to have that.
Invest in people, the ounce of gold.
That's a great ounce of gold.
That's a great ounce of gold.
There's your ounce of gold.
We give everyone an ounce of gold.
That's an ounce of gold.
That's an ounce of gold. And my prediction is gold prices are going up 2012 today, on its way to 4,000 in a couple of years.
I've never seen an ounce of gold.
There you go. Now you
Don't think it's a quarter and lose it, actually, when you're drunk.
No,
Irishman.
What's it worth, Mike?
$2,012.
All right.
Wow.
Hey.
Kidding me?
We're trying to get you that plane back.
Right, yes.
Comes
It's on
back
his
every
way.
week.
I want to just wrap up and say, one of the things that we've seen with lots of entrepreneurs is curiosity and tenacity, and you have those in spades. And so I'm buying calls on John Foley.
John Foley. And
Really
can you tell the people where they could get Ernesta rugs from?
Ernesta.com.
Ernesta.com.
Look for it. I really appreciate John being here. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's done amazing with really everything he's done. Those were some great stories. I didn't even know all of them, but like Peloton was, a monstrously successful company and a really brilliant, creative idea. And Ernesta, I think being in the business a little bit, I just think it's going to be a home run, because I think it's a really fragmented, tough place to find, and so I think it's exciting. So we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Val. Good to connect.